there, welcome to Long Distance Review, and on this week's episode I'm going to look at the new album from Paradise Lost, entitled Obsidian. For those of you who don't know who Paradise Lost are, where the hell have you been? They've been around for 32 years, formed way back in 1988 in Halifax in England. Halifax isn't really relevant to it, but I do feel the miserable Yorkshire demeanour drips through on their music quite a lot. They are at their core a doom death metal band, and they've kind of had a stable lineup for a band 32 years into their career. They've only ever changed their drummer, I think. So it's pretty admirable that this deep into their career, it's still the same guys that started out, considering the varying change in sound they've had throughout their career. I feel like their career can be split into eras. You have the original doom death metal era of the albums Lost Paradise, Gothic and Shades of God, which were all death metal albums, doom metal albums, although Shades of God was evolving a little bit more. They then came out with the two albums Icon and Draconian Times. And Draconian Times was this big breakthrough album for them. It was a much more heavy metal sounding album, goth metal album. But it was a brilliant album, Draconian Times, and it burst onto the metal scene in the UK. It hit the top 20 in the album charts, and the band were tipped as the next Metallica. Although a completely different sound, that was kind of the hype surrounding them at the time. From this, they went on then to be a gothic rock band, let's say, with the album 1 Second, which I think is a brilliant album, but they certainly incorporate a lot more gothic sounding, a lot more electronic elements, which they then went headfirst into on the album Host, which was dark wave, synth wave, very Depeche Mode-esque, let's say. And then they followed that up with the quite crap Believe in Nothing, which is this alt metal album, which actually isn't as bad as I remember it, but compared to the rest of their output was pretty poor. They then began climbing their way out of this kind of hole they dug for themselves with the albums Symbol of Life and Paradise Lost, which were more gothic metal sounding, alt metal sounding albums. They then went down the heavier, doomier road again with the albums In Requiem, Faith Divides Us, Death Unites Us and Tragic Idol. And then finally returning with the two albums before this one, The Plague Within and Medusa, they returned right back to their roots of death metal and doom metal, complete with harsh vocals and fuzzed up guitars. So they kind of came full circle in their career, starting out as a doom death metal band, touching on pretty much everything, and then back to a doom death metal band again. So we're now onto this album Obsidian, and I guess in the run-up to the release they've kind of hinted at a return to the more gothic rock days, but retaining the more doomy elements they've had of recent times. And I think that pretty much sums it up well. Opener, Darkener Thoughts gives you a taste of exactly what this album's all about. It has these slight, minimalistic, plucked acoustic guitar that opens it up, which I played over these beautiful, lovely, clean vocals from Nick Holmes. And it builds up with these great strings and melodies before exploding on the 2-minute mark with these growls and riffs and big drums. Nick Holmes really combines his growls and cleans to great effect throughout this album, but especially on that song in real dramatic style. And I think after a few albums without his clean vocals, it's great to hear them come back. I really like the yin and yang effect on this album of it. Lead guitarist Greg McIntosh is in his element, providing these doomy, melancholic guitar lines found all across this album. Check out the one at the start of the song, Fall From Grace. It's which is a song which leans much more on the doomier death side of Paradise Lost oeuvre, but it has that distinctive Paradise Lost guitar tone, which could only be them, and does so show that they haven't swayed way too far away from the doom sound of new. But it is lovely to hear them go back to the gothic rock sound that was in their back catalogue, back up the 1 Second days, let's say. Tracks like Ghosts with Holmes' baritone vocals over these eerie keys and these gothic stomping drums is great to hear. Maybe it's just me, because I think my favourite album is probably 1 Second, which is the gothic rock album, but it's the album that got me into Paradise Lost. So to my ears, it's joyous to hear that sound return. The album has some wonderful contrasts. It's an amalgamation of both sides of Paradise Lost. A song like The Devil Embraced really slows the pace right down and showcases almost sludgy side to the band, but it has these Nick Holmes really swaps his cleans and harshes vocals to great effect on that song. It's a real epic 6-minute long song that works brilliantly. The fuzzed up guitar tone that they had on Medusa is all but gone on this album, and it is great to hear that guitar tone, the clean, ringing guitar tone, come back. The Draconian Times guitar tone, I think I'd call it. But it's lost none of its weight and atmosphere that it has. Paradise Lost sit in this weird zone that they've perfected with themselves. It's this great balance between that has these melodies and keyboards and clean vocals, and then these hellish, harsh vocals, doomy slabs and heavy metal, and they sit balanced between these two things perfectly. And a band 32 years into their career, they seem to have perfected it, and it can only be them when you hear them. The two-song punch of Forsaken and Serenity showcases exactly what they're doing on this album. You have Forsaken, which is this Sisters of Mercy-esque goth rock stomper, and it's followed up by Serenity, which is this doom metal, like heavy metal song. Basically, it's a real doomy, death metal-y kind of song, heavy as hell. But it is both sides of Paradise Lost showcased in those two songs. They're both hooky, they're both memorable, and they're both excellent showcases of the band. The subject matters across this album are the usual Paradise Lost subject matters. There's loneliness, death, solitude, sadness, all that kind of stuff. And there's the song, my favourite song on the album, I think, is a song called Ending Days, which feels like it could be taken from Draconian Times. It has these lovely, glorious strings and these Iron Maiden-esque lead guitar lines, and Holmes has these catchy, mournful vocals. It just ticks all my boxes for a Paradise Lost song. There is a song called Hope Dies Young, which I don't think works as well on here than any of the others. There's something on that song that I just can't put my finger on that I don't like. It feels dated to me. Not dated in a way like I said about the song sounding like it was from Draconian Times. It feels dated in the fact there's this weird synth effect just before the chorus kicks in that feels like it could be taken from a 90s goth rock nightclub anthem, which, I don't know, it just doesn't sound that great to me. It sounds a bit cheesy. But the album does close up with the stunning death metal, doom metal song Ravengast, which, for those people who thought they'd gone right back to their gothic rock boy band days, can rest assured they haven't. And although I think that song is great, it does feel a little bit out of place right at the end of the album. Maybe the more I listen to the album, it'll segue in a little bit better, but at the moment it feels a bit out of place. But I do love Nick Holmes' growl on that song, and where he says, "In the darkness you will die." That's great. Paradise Lost have always been a band that haven't rested on their laurels, and 32 years into their career, they show no signs of slowing down or drifting to a conclusion at all. They've picked styles from all over their back catalogue, and the contrast on here works very, very well for the majority of it. Bands are better when they push themselves creatively, and that's exactly what's happening on this album. And a band this far into their career still pushing themselves creatively and trying new things is admirable and really good to hear. Other bands this deep into their career, I'm looking at you, Metallica, don't really try. Trust Paradise Lost to release one of their best albums of their career just when the world is burning and decaying all around us. It seems very, very fitting. I think it's a really good album. I'm very, very pleased they've gone back to their gothic rock styles and incorporated it all into their doom style they've recent. Let me know what you think of the album, and I'll be back soon with another review. Thanks very much.